And you as well. And from here, we'll expand the scope of our conversation to look at happenings in the international community, especially that peace agreement that will be signed by the U.S. and Iran that will end that major conflict, that sent shockwaves across the world. We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll begin that conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Let's bring in our guest, Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya. He's a security consultant joining us right now on the Morning Brief. Mr. Adekoya, good to see you and welcome to the program. If you can help us unmute your device so we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Jeffrey. I was muted by the control room.
Okay, so
good morning to the viewers.
So let's talk about what the expectations are. So everybody's waiting for. We've heard the announcement. Now everybody's waiting for the official signing. Maybe you walk us through the geopolitical significance of this signing and whether we should just have cautious optimism.
Well, as you know, the principal issue here before the parties is the Strait of Hormuz, which was not closed before the conflict and which has never been weaponized. I mean, when you look at the geopolitical ramification, it's broader because post this agreement, the continuous pressure point, it was a choke point before, for at least 20-30% passage of global crude trade. But the weaponization of it is something that has post this agreement significance, which means that if Iran feels that Israel has violated a ceasefire, agreement, that choke point can be weaponized again. So it will look as though Iran is coming out of this a victor. Because American bases in the area has been destroyed. They are now going to have, according to reports, even by J.D. Vance, access to over 300 billion. They've also had a way to bring their proxies into the agreements. So continuing their regional influence, they would, by our understanding, continue to tow the choke point at the Strait of Hormuz, giving them additional revenue. This doesn't look like a good deal for President Donald Trump. It looks like a win for Iran. But what is most important to all of us is that, as we've been seeing, the price of crude should begin to come down. Now, we don't expect that things should go back to normal very quickly because it's going to take the shipping company some time and the insurance company sometimes to feel like they're comfortable enough to begin to access that route, and then shipping can go back to business as usual. Because remember that there's also a number of mining of the area, the channel of flow, the coordination between Iran and Qatar. So a lot of details still has to be worked out. But for now, I would say that I think the world is even a sigh of relief a bit that at least some agreement has been made. And then some of the knock-on effects on supply chain and even energy prices should begin to taper down a bit. That's the initial assessment, really, of this deal and the outlook.
So as it is, there's something you said, maybe I missed it. Are you saying in clear terms, because America, perhaps from their own strategic objective, is to ensure that Iran doesn't develop nuclear weapons. And they said Iran has agreed never. That's a word that was used in, I think there's 8 or 9 paragraph in this agreement that we have. I don't know whether it's been redrafted. But talk to us about whether or not this remains international waters or under the control of Iran. I know you mentioned something like that in passing, because if it's still under the control of Iran, then what is America celebrating besides stopping them from developing nuclear weapons?
Geoffrey, even the development of nuclear weapon, it's not the first time that America will come into an agreement with Iran on the nuclear weapon issue. Now, what they say to the public and what they agree in principle are two different things. You can reduce the weapon stockpile, the enrichment, you can, deactivate some centrifuges, Iran still needs to show to its own constituency that America is bluffing. America also needs to show its own constituency that has dealt a blow to. The issue of nuclear enrichment is still there for Iran. Remember that Iran is a member of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Before this war, even the intelligence agency in America has said that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon, and they've complied with all the whole. But what Iran is saying is that how can they not have a nuclear weapon if a near power like them has a nuclear weapon in the region? The other thing is on the menace of Iran's missile system. They're saying, don't talk about our hypersonic weapons because the region is flooded with weapons. We're still going to retain that force. As to what the Americans are celebrating, I'm not really clear, because the facts on the matter, as it were, would be that Iran took on America and Israel and took them on a standstill and took them head on and emerged unscathed because of the principle of the escalation, dialing of escalation. There's something called it, I've forgotten it now. It's not about escalation dominance. Yes, escalation dominance. Because on the ladder of escalation, Iran retains escalation dominance. And the choke points they hold, how do you call it, international waters? By international law, you have certain kilometers off of your shore that is your exclusive zone. That point is between Qatar and Iran to share. America has no business there. No other country in the region has any business there. So it's not true that it's international waters. What I worry about is when, you look at the UK Navy, for example, interdicting a Russian tanker or a tanker that is flagged from Sierra Leone coming from Russia in international water. You can see how the South China Sea has been weaponized all in the name of international water. I mean, some of those can be contested. But the choke of the Strait of Hormuz, is clearly not what you call international waters. It is within the territorial reserve of both Iran and Qatar.
Now let's examine.
And Oman.
Now let's examine the reactions of politicians back home in the U.S. to this deal, and tie it with Israel's disposition to this deal that has now been reached between U.S. and Iran. Republicans are criticizing the funding component for the Iran deal for reconstruction, although Vice President J.D. Vance, I'm reading, has also provided assurances that if Iran does not abide by the terms of the agreement by destroying its uranium enrichment, that there will be no funding. But the Israeli government has also hugely criticized this deal. And let's not forget that, where we started off from in the first place, this war was really seen as being prosecuted on behalf of Israel by the United States government. And so the question really is, if the Israeli government is not in support of this deal, should we be worried about parties abiding by it and there will be no resumption of hostilities against the backdrop of division within the U.S. government and the disposition of the Israeli government towards this deal?
Without sounding like a spokesman for the Iranian government, I mean, on the facts on the ground, under the Obama agreement, I don't know if you can hear me. Under the Obama agreement, Iran clearly, by the IAEA, by the Obama officials, was said that Iran was abiding by the terms of the initial agreement. It was this president of the United States that took the Americans out of that agreement. When Joe Biden came, they tried again to bring Iran back into it. Having found themselves abiding by every term of it, they had a bit of a distrust of the Americans, saying they wouldn't enter into an agreement like that again. Now, in terms of historically, empirically, Iran has not shown itself to be not willing to abide by the terms of the agreement. I mean, they allowed the IAEA inspectors into all their facilities, they kept to the terms. Even while they were negotiating, the decapitation attack was executed by both the Americans and the Israelis. So the issue of the constant threat to say if Iran does not abide, when in true practice, Iran has been the one abiding by those terms. I think what Vance is worrying about is the reaction of the Israelis, which is what you are also pointing to. This deal does not give, short of Israel nuking Iran, or America nuking Iran, there is no satisfaction that Israel will seemingly gain from a deal that sees Iran remain as a regional opposition and a regional hegemon to Israel's own aspiration within the region. Now, if you talk about great power politics and great power play, maintaining hegemonic influence is key to great powers. And within the region, Israel and Iran are great rivals. The hot talk about one blowing up the other is real because you have hardliners on the side of Iran as you have hardliners on the side of Israel. So you're hearing a bit of the geopolitical horse trading that is going on. Israel wants America to do more. America is tapped out. You know, their weapons stockpile is considerably low. The options they have short of a nuclear weapon are not good. And, you know, if they could, they would have opened the Strait of Hormuz, but the Americans cannot. So, I mean, we had already analyzed that at some point, America will, cut its losses, lick its wound, and, declare victory of some sort and, sing themselves to high heaven that they have achieved something. Where in true fact that Iran is emerging stronger out of this. The bigger risk is that Israel may do something, which Israel would have to do in its own national interest, but then Iran has shown that it will also has the capability to escalate and, match Israel fire for fire, short of a nuclear weapon, which if Israel does use, then it brings other nuclear powers into the conflict. So I think this is more or less like a logjam. Anything that comes out of this, is just all noise. This is all over as we see it. Israel has tried, America has tried, Iran has resisted, and Iran continues to develop new weapons capabilities. This is not going anywhere further than this, but if Israel escalates, Iran will retaliate.
And so we're just sitting on the edge, right? Even though we have been able to secure this deal.
Absolutely, and going historically, these are two brothers, really, Ishmael and Isaac. So they say the fight between two brothers is always very tough. So, I mean, the place would always be on a keg of gunpowder any day now. But America is losing a lot of influence now because the whole assumption of holding American bases in the Gulf is that an attack like the one which we have seen will not happen, and those bases will form a base of deterrence. But, even the bases themselves have been significantly destroyed, let alone the countries that were seeking protection from the bases. So I'm not sure what President Trump is getting out of this. The facts look like a diminished American influence in the region and a reshaping of the geopolitical posture of powers in that axis.
Well, maybe the only victory for him is to ensure that they don't develop nuclear weapon. He's been looking for an off-ramp, and I don't think it looks like somebody who is very good at the battle of attrition. So maybe exhausted already. I may be wrong. Onyekachi Adekoya is the MD, Aquiline Intelligence and Defense Consulting. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.